Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us here on 9 News Watch. I'm Chris Bianchi, and as we've been doing on a weekly basis on Tuesday afternoons, we've got a special guest to specifically discuss COVID-19 in the Hispanic community here in the state of Colorado. Now, today we're chatting, as we do each week, with Dr. Ricardo González-Fisher, a medical expert with Servicios de la Raza, and we're going to do this bilingually. So if you are joining us and you may know, or you may be hearing this in English, we will conduct this in Spanish. In fact, we'll switch over to Spanish here in just a second. But if you do have a question in either English or in Spanish for Dr. Ricardo González-Fisher or any guests in the future, please email me at chris.bianchi@9news.com, and I'll make sure that it is answered either this week or in the weeks that come. But as I mentioned, we're going to start things off in Spanish. Y con eso, hola y buenas tardes a todos. Vamos a hablar sobre el COVID-19 y en la comunidad hispana en Colorado en español con el doctor Ricardo González-Fisher. Buenas tardes, doctor, y gracias por estar con nosotros hoy.
Chris, gracias por tenernos aquí ayudando o dando información a la comunidad. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, un placer, y además, si necesitas esta información en inglés, lo tendremos en más o menos 5 minutos, pero ahora empezaremos en español. Y si tiene alguna pregunta en español, por favor, envíamelo a chris.bianchi@9news.com. Entonces, con eso, doctor, primero, ¿han tenido algunos tipos de eventos de vacunación en las últimas semanas, en los últimos días? ¿Ha encontrado más o menos niveles de éxito con ellos?
Sí, Chris, hemos tenido varios eventos en las últimas semanas. Tuvimos un drive-thru en Servicios de la Raza hace 2 semanas. Fin de semana que pasó estuvimos en el Consulado de México vacunando y ofreciendo otros servicios de salud para las personas. Y sí es importante mencionar que la afluencia de personas, el número de personas que viene con nosotros, ha tendido a disminuir. Estamos otra vez en un momento en el que a la gente le está costando trabajo tomar la decisión de vacunarse.
Bueno, qué bueno escuchar que han vacunado y hay un poco de éxito con estas clínicas. Y vamos a hablar sobre el evento de esta noche más tarde, pero con eso, ¿se ha encontrado con personas con vacunas que no están aprobadas por la FDA? ¿Qué tipo de vacunas son esas y deberían esas personas volver a vacunarse con un Pfizer o de Moderna?
Sí, por el tipo de población que vemos, Chris, hemos estado atendiendo personas de diferentes partes del continente americano o algunos que se vacunaron en Europa, que por alguna razón llegan a las clínicas con nosotros, y debemos de entender que lo ideal en Estados Unidos es tener vacunas autorizadas por la FDA, pero también Estados Unidos aprueba el uso de algunas vacunas que son aprobadas por la Organización Mundial de la Salud. Entonces, FDA ha aprobado solamente el uso de Moderna, Pfizer y la Johnson Johnson, mientras que la Organización Mundial de la Salud, además de estas 3, tiene Sinovac, Sinopharm, tiene el Novavax y sobre todo la AstraZeneca. Son esas vacunas. Entonces, cuando alguna persona viene de alguna parte de Europa o de México o de, Centro y Sudamérica y se aplicaron alguna de estas vacunas, nosotros les estamos recomendando que tomen un refuerzo de Pfizer. Hay otras vacunas que se están aplicando que no son reconocidas o aprobadas por la Organización Mundial de la Salud o por la FDA. Entre ellas está CanSino, la Sputnik 5, entre otras, que se aplicaron mucho en México y en Centro y Sudamérica, que esas vacunas estamos recomendando que se empiecen a vacunar otra vez desde el principio.
Bueno, no sabía mucho de eso. Con eso, y cambiando el tema un poco, hay un gran aumento reciente en casos de COVID-19 en Europa. ¿Está preocupado de que eso nos llegue aquí en los Estados Unidos?
Yo pienso que es algo que tenemos que tener, estarle poniendo mucha atención, Chris. Platicamos hace algunas semanas de la inmunidad natural que se había dado en las personas que se infectaron sin darse cuenta o con síntomas mínimos con la variante Omicron. Eso pasó también en Europa y eso pasó también en China y también pasó aquí en Estados Unidos. Sabemos que esa inmunidad tiende a decrecer con el paso del tiempo. Y tenemos nosotros ahora la ventaja de que eso pasó primero en China, donde están cerrando lugares, pasó después en Europa, donde en Finlandia tuvieron un incremento de 84% de los casos en una semana. Y entonces estamos viendo esto. Nosotros tenemos una desventaja ahorita, Chris, estamos entrando a Spring Break. Se está bajando esa inmunidad natural y estamos empezando a tener más convivencia por Spring Break. Entonces, yo sí quiero que estemos alerta, regresando de Spring Break, empezando abril, mayo, vamos a empezar a tener otra vez casos, una elevación de los casos aquí en Colorado.
Entonces yo creo que es obvio, pero todavía tenemos que cuidarnos con esta pandemia. Bueno, con eso, ¿puede contarnos más sobre la clínica de vacunas que el Servicio de la Raza está organizando esta noche?
Sí, bueno, y esto es importante. Además de cuidarnos, sabemos que la mejor manera de protegernos del virus es estar vacunados. Por eso, todos los martes, entre 4 de la tarde y 6, 8 de la noche, dependiendo de afluencia de personas, estamos aquí vacunando en las instalaciones de servicios de la raza y esto es, no necesitan tener cita, nomás pasar y se les pone su vacuna, ya sea la primera, si es hoy cuando decidió vacunarse, o la segunda si le hace falta, o el refuerzo.
Bueno, varias opciones con eso. Y eso concluye la parte española de nuestro programa. Ahora seguiremos en inglés con el doctor. So back over to English, and I'll ask you some of the questions that I asked in Spanish a short while ago. With that, doctor, I wanted to ask you about a few of the vaccine events that we've had here in recent weeks. I know there's been some different types of outreach efforts, and I'm wondering if you found any more or less levels of success with some of those.
Yes, thank you, Chris, for this question. We've been working every weekend around the state. In the past 2 weekends, we had a drive-through here at Servicios de la Raza under the snow, it was really cold. And then last week, we had another one at the Mexican consulate on Saturday. And one of the things that we've been noticing is that we still have people coming to see us, but the numbers are slowly dropping. So there's this sense of people who believe that perhaps they are not ready to get a vaccine right now. Again, we already had this last year, and now we're falling into this again. So we want to urge people to don't forget that it's needed and that there are a lot of options for them.
With that in mind, there's been a big recent rise in COVID-19 cases in Europe specifically. How worried are you about that potentially reaching us here in the United States?
I think it's something that we need to pay attention to, Chris. Several weeks ago, we were talking about the natural immunity that came to a group of people through an infection with Omicron. Sometimes they were asymptomatic infections and they didn't even know, but we know that we had this herd immunity going on. The same thing happened in China and in Europe before us, and we know that this natural immunity tends to wane. It tends to drop. It's after several months now, so they're just falling into it. Finland just reported an increase in 84% of their cases in 1 week. In China, they're closing some places because of the spread of the disease. So the sad thing with us is that this natural immunity that some people have is starting to wane now. And the sad part is that it's coming at the same time that there's a lot of people having their spring break, and we just dropped the mask mandate. So we have to be careful, because I think that by April or May, we're going to start to see a rise in the cases here in the state.
With that, also, obviously, you talk about vaccination being a big protection there. There may be people with vaccines that are not approved by the FDA. For example, the Sinovac vaccine that comes from China. What kind of vaccines are those? I mentioned Sinovac, but what are other kinds of those vaccines? And let's say, for example, you got one of those vaccines that are not FDA approved. Should you get either a booster or get fully vaccinated by Moderna or Pfizer?
By the nature of the work that we do, we serve people who come from different parts of the world. So we are frequently encountering people who got the vaccine in Central America, South America, Mexico, some people in Europe, and some of those vaccines are not approved by the FDA. The FDA has only approved Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. The World Health Organization has approved other vaccines like AstraZeneca, like we were saying the Sinovac, the Novavax, which are approved. So if you have one of those that were approved by the World Health Organization, we can still give you a booster. Or if you just had one, we can give you the second dose of Pfizer and complete your card with that second dose. But if you had one of those that have not been approved by the World Health Organization, like, for example, the Russian vaccine, the Sputnik 5, or another vaccine that's called CanSino, or another vaccine that have been applied in Central, South America, and Mexico. So the recommendation is that we start all over with them. After 28 days, we can just start and do it all over again. And this is just because we want to make sure that everybody is protected.
In full transparency, the reason we have you on every Tuesday is that Servicios de la Raza hosts a weekly vaccine clinic tonight. Can you tell us a bit more about that, please?
Thank you. Yes, we've been vaccinating on Tuesdays at Servicios de la Raza. We have a walk-in clinic. People just need to show up at between 4 o'clock and 6 or 7 o'clock at night. They just come in, and they don't need to have an appointment. We just are vaccinating here. People just need to walk in the door and they'll get their vaccine. And we've been doing this like for several months now here at Servicios, trying to reach people who are working and can come drive through or drive by after work hours, and then they'll get their vaccine.
Well, fantastic service. And thank you, doctor, for answering a lot of our questions in both English and in Spanish about COVID-19, and a bit more, of course, of a focus on its impacts on the Hispanic community. And once more, if you do have a question, either English or Spanish, that you would like to ask Dr. Ricardo González-Fisher, either next week or down the road, please email me at chris.bianchi@9news.com, and I'll make sure that it is answered. That can be in either, again, English or in Spanish. And that will do it for this week's look at COVID-19 in the Hispanic community here in Colorado. Gracias a todos, and thanks to everyone. And we will see you again right back here next week. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.